You know how sometimes we do like an intro and we put time and effort into it to make it more engaging so people are like, oh my God, I gotta pay attention to this video.
Yeah, fuck that.
Yeah, we don't have one of those for this video because this video is full of good information. What's cracking, guys? Omar Yusuf here, back with another video. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever wanted bigger, wider shoulders? I was asking you that, Els.
No.
No, well that's weird. For the rest of you, for the 99.9% of you, everybody that I know when it comes to aesthetics, when it comes to proportion, when it comes to symmetry, when it comes to people just wanting to look jacked, having wider shoulders is always more desirable. And it's kind of a ratio. People talk about the V-taper. The V-taper is kind of having lat width while having also shoulder width and then having a tiny waist. Now, when it comes to training, adding overall mass is very important. And that's why we should do the compound movements. But there comes a time and place, a point in every individual's life where they need to specialize a little bit more. And if we want to get wider shoulders, we really need to focus on the side deltoid. And if you take a look at someone like Dr. Mike Israetel, who's very intelligent when it comes to training, volume, load, exercise selection, he advocates for a higher total load, amount of load that you're doing volume when it comes to your side deltoid training. And so most people, when they train things, they probably train them in a very symmetrical fashion. You know, you train your chest equal to your back, same idea when it comes to your quads, your hamstrings, and so on and so forth. But if you want to grow a particular area, you need to put even more time and effort in that area. And so I think if we want to grow bigger shoulders, and my goal is to get more of that V taper, so increase my shoulder width, the lats are already popping, those are happening, and then eventually when I lean down, a tinier waist. However, there comes a point in every individual's training when they need to specialize. And so for myself, right now, as you guys probably know, I'm in this lean mass phase. I've already worked on making my lats bigger, and that's been successful. Now I want to focus on making my shoulders wider. And I'm going to make some recommendations for those that are interested in making their shoulders wider. Before I go on, I should say that for some individuals, some of these exercises will not work for you, and that's totally fine. You can really focus, and there's several different approaches that you could take. One, you could take that holistic approach where you focus on big compound movements that I'm going to list, as well as doing isolation movements. And then for some people, because when it comes to targeting the side deltoid, just if they do an upright row, it feels terrible on their shoulders. If they do a behind the neck press, it doesn't feel great. That's fine. Don't do it. Just focus on the isolation movements. So there's two ways you can approach it, but I'm going to give you the total methodology, the total training that you would do if your goal is to develop bigger shoulders. So in the first place, when we talk about frequency, we would be training 2 times per week your side deltoids. So the frequency of training when it comes to side deltoids would be 2 times a week. We want to focus on at least 1 compound movement and then 1 isolation movement. When it comes to overall shoulder exercise selection, you guys know I'm a huge advocate of the overhead press. I love it. I'm going to continue to do it. However, if we take a look at pressing, not all pressing is made the same. They're not all equal. What I mean? Well, the further in front your shoulders are, your elbows are in front of the bar. So if you hold the overhead press like this, like I recommend, so kind of your elbows are in front of your shoulder and you're pressing overhead like so, that's much more anterior deltoid dominant. As you move your arm outwards like so, it becomes more and more side deltoid dominant. So if you do the overhead press with proper form in order to maximize the amount of weight that you lift, it actually doesn't maximize the stimulation in your side deltoid. So you need to change up your main overhead press movement. So the overhead press is a fantastic overall shoulder builder, but much like the incline bench press is to the normal flat bench press, if you want to bring up the upper pec, you need to do more what? Incline bench press. So if you want to build your side deltoid, you need to select some sort of wider grip. The one that I would personally advocate for would be either a behind the neck press, because the behind the neck, when you put your arm in that position, it's more easily targeting that side deltoid. It's in a better position, mechanical advantage for you to stimulate the side deltoid. So I'd go with a wide behind the neck press would be my first compound movement choice. And you could totally sub out the overhead press for the behind the neck press for, let's say, a cycle, training block, whatever you choose. If that doesn't feel great for you, that's totally fine. A really simple one that most people do would be the seated or standing overhead press, except we're really going to make sure that we keep our arms perfectly to the side as long as, again, it doesn't bother your shoulder. Some people, they angle it roughly at 45 degrees. For this, for the intent and purpose of what we want when we want to grow our side deltoid, we want to make sure the dumbbells almost are resting right on the shoulder cap itself. So we would do seated or standing dumbbell shoulder press. And you can choose any of these big compound movements as your primary side deltoid movement. So either the behind the neck press, the seated or standing shoulder press, or lastly, and this is one I haven't personally done enough in my time, but I know it is effective, would be the upright row. And a quick tip when it comes to the upright row, so it feels better, you want to focus on getting the elbows as high as comfortable. You probably want to go with a thumbless grip, and you want to go with a slightly wider grip. So some people go very narrow. If you have shoulder issues, that's not a good idea whatsoever. I would go with a wider grip. So out of these compound movements, you need to choose at least one for each session. You're doing 2 sessions, and each session starts with a compound movement. So either a behind the neck press, a seated dumbbell press, or an upright row. And you want to try and focus on progressive overload. So one day I would go a little bit lighter. So you do, let's say, a 4x8, and then on the other day you go heavier on the compound movement. So something like a 5x5, just like you do on your overhead press. So we have 2 compound movements on either day, and then it's followed by doing an isolation movement, and this is where we go higher volume. And so for a lot of people, when they do a lateral raise might be effective for them, but as I've shown with Alberto Nunez, as I've shown when it comes to Jordan Shallow, there's a lot of different ways to try and do the lateral raise in order to properly target the side deltoid, because it's a little stubborn, it's a little hard. The one I'm going to show you today is one that's very cool that actually Eric Helms showed me, that I find is probably the most applicable for everyone watching this video, because it's the easiest to intuitively feel it in your side deltoid. What you want to do is a cable lateral raise where you angle your body slightly towards the ground, you're leaning away, and you're going to bring your arm in line with the cable itself. So your arm's not perfectly at the side, it's slightly bent and in front of you. In that way, you should target your side deltoid more than normal. And because the cable has constant tension, it's really hard to mess this one up. And if we're talking about trying to develop bigger shoulders, we want to go with surefire movements that are guaranteed to stimulate the muscles that we want. So we're talking about doing big compound movements, and then we're following up with a lot of volume when it comes to the isolation movements. On one day, you're going to be doing a 4x12, so 4 sets of 12 repetitions when it comes to the side delts. On the next day, you're going to be going with 4 sets of 20 repetitions. So if we look at the totality, the total amount of training volume when it comes to your side deltoids, if you look at what Dr. Mike Israetel recommends, and he goes even higher, we're looking at a pretty high total amount of volume. We're going with 8 sets of isolation, and we're going with roughly 9 sets of compound movements for a grand total of about 17 total working sets when it comes to the side deltoids. If this is currently higher than what you're doing for your side deltoid, that's great. This probably means it will yield superior results, because we're selecting effective movements that are aimed at targeting the side deltoid, as well as picking rep ranges that stimulate hypertrophy. When it comes to trying to develop bigger shoulders, it really boils down to finding the perfect movements for you. And that's why I gave you 3 compound movements. You only have to pick 2 of them. One, the seated dumbbell overhead press, is applicable for pretty much everyone. I think everyone can do the seated or standing overhead press. And remember, I think for the side deltoid, it's superior because we're bringing the elbow out like so. When it's further in front, that means more anterior deltoid stimulation, and for all intents and purposes, the overhead press is a fantastic movement. If we want to get wider shoulders, we got to sub it out for now. One of my mini goals this year in this lean mass phase is to get that V taper, and one of the key components of that is developing bigger shoulders. This is a no bullshit, effective approach to doing this. Try this out. Just wait and see. I got my coach, Dr. Eric Helms, helping me out when it comes to the lean mass phase. Y'all gonna learn something today when I lean out. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you follow this advice and get bigger shoulders. If you're not like us and you do want bigger shoulders, make sure to like the damn video. Let's get it to 4,000 likes. Let's go with a moderate amount, because we're not about going crazy here. I gave you a solid, effective training program. I didn't say it's an 8-hour shoulder workout. I said it's 2 times per week, 17 sets in total. It will get you results. I got to get out of here. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked the video, again, like the damn video, and I'll see all you guys, my rascals, in that next video. Peace.